She said it with a realtor's smile and a bulldozer's certainty. This house is ours now. My son, her husband, just stood behind her with his eyes on the floor. The movers were already waiting at the curb. I didn't raise my voice. I just went to a drawer. Paper always beats bravado, but only if you have the right papers. My name is Eleanor Whitford. I am 58 years old, a widow, and until this morning, I was simply a woman about to have a cup of tea. I work as the treasurer for the Juniper Vale Conservancy, a quiet non-profit here in Georgetown, Texas. The kettle was just starting to whistle when my daughter-in-law, Savannah Pierce, made her declaration. "This house is ours now," she said. It wasn't a request. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the bright, predatory smile she usually reserved for closing a deal. My son, Adam, stood just behind her left shoulder, his gaze fixed on the hardwood floor, studying the scuff marks by the entryway as if they held the secrets of the universe. I looked past them, through the sheer curtains of the front window. A large, white, moving truck was parked at the curb, its engine idling, a heavy diesel rumble that vibrated in my chest. Two men in matching blue uniforms leaned against the cab, smoking cigarettes. My neighbors were already noticing. I saw Mrs. Gable peek through her blinds, then quickly duck back inside. The air in my own living room felt too thick to breathe. "Savannah, what are you talking about?" I asked. My voice sounded calm, which was a small miracle. "We decided it was time to consolidate," she said, brushing a non-existent piece of lint from her sharp blazer. She pushed a sheaf of papers across the coffee table toward me. A photocopy. Not an original. "This is the quitclaim deed. It's all filed. The house is legally ours, as Adam is your only heir." She held up her phone, angling the screen toward me. "And this is the confirmation email from our attorney. It's all perfectly legal. We're moving in." "Our attorney." I looked at Adam. He flinched, but didn't look up. It's a family plan." "Mum," he mumbled. "We talked about it. Consolidating assets. It's smarter for the future." He had never, not once, talked to me about this. "I don't understand," I said, my hand still on the tea caddy. "I never signed any—" "Adam, look at me." He wouldn't. "I need time to look at these," I said, gesturing to the blurry photocopy. "I need to call my lawyer." Savannah let out a short, impatient laugh. "There's no need. You already signed. We took care of it last month when you gave us the power of attorney paperwork for the insurance." My blood went cold. "I never gave you power of attorney." "You signed," Savannah insisted, her voice hardening. "It's done. The movers are on the clock." As if summoned by her words, my phone, lying on the kitchen counter, let out a sharp beep, a text alert. I walked over, my legs feeling unsteady, and picked it up. It was a fraud alert from my bank. Alert. The primary contact email for your Williamson County property tax account has been changed. If you did not authorize this, please contact us immediately. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a threat. They had already been busy. A sudden, cold dread washed over me. This morning, not an hour ago, I had gone to let the dog out. My key had stuck in the back door lock. I'd jiggled it, cursed the Texas humidity, and given up, letting him out the front instead. I walked past them, ignoring Savannah's impatient sigh, and went straight to the back door. I slid my key into the lock. It went in halfway and stopped. It wouldn't turn, it wouldn't budge. They had changed the locks on my house. I turned around, leaning against the doorframe. The movers, taking the idle truck as a cue, were now carrying boxes into my foyer, setting them down with careless thuds. One of the boxes, marked Den in thick black marker, was set down too hard. A picture frame slid out and clattered onto the tile. The glass wasn't broken. Thank God. It was a photo of my late husband, David, taken the day he finished hanging the sign he carved for this place. He was grinning, arms slung over the hand-painted wood that read, "The House of Seven Gables." In the photo, the sign was hanging just a little crooked. It still hung that way. Seeing his face, his pride in this home, amidst this invasion, it broke through the shock and lit a fire. Savannah snapped her fingers. "Eleanor, we don't have all day. We need to start mapping out the kitchen demo." I didn't say a word. I walked back to the kitchen, past the offensive, stacked boxes. I turned off the now screaming kettle. The sudden silence was deafening. I carefully dried my hands on a dish towel, folded it, and placed it over the handle of the oven. Then, I walked past my son, who looked pale and sick. I walked past my daughter-in-law, who looked like a shark smelling blood. I went into my small study, to the watercolor of the blue bonnet field hanging on the wall. I lifted it from its hook, set it gently on the desk, and faced the small, grey wall safe behind it. My fingers found the dial. The soft, mechanical clicks sounded like gunshots in the quiet house. Click, click, clack. The heavy steel door swung open. I reached inside, past the insurance papers and the few pieces of jewelry I kept. My hand found what it was looking for. A single, thick, crimson-red accordion file. I closed the safe, spun the dial, and replaced the painting, making sure it was perfectly straight. I walked back into the living room, holding the red file to my chest. I sat down in my armchair, the one David always said was mine, and placed the file in my lap. Only then did I look up. "Savannah?" I said, my voice perfectly even. "You might want to tell your movers to take a break." The crimson file felt cool and heavy in my lap. It was not a weapon I ever wanted to use, but it was one my husband, David, and I had meticulously built. 2 years ago. David's stroke changed everything. It wasn't the kind that incapacitates completely, but it was the kind that whispers loudly about mortality. The doctors, the therapists, the endless forms it made us realize how fragile our security was. We weren't wealthy, but we had this house. David built the additions himself. It was our only real asset, our fortress. We sat down with Baird and Laughlin, our attorneys. Mr. Baird, a man who believed in the power of fine print, listened to our concerns. "In Texas, your homestead is protected from creditors," he explained. "But that doesn't always protect it from family." He suggested an irrevocable homestead trust. The word irrevocable was frightening, but he explained the structure. We would place the house into this trust. I would retain a life estate, meaning I had the absolute right to live here, to manage the property, and to enjoy it until the day I died. No one could mortgage it, sell it, or force me out. The crucial part was the beneficiary. When I passed, the house would not go to Adam. We loved our son, but we saw how Savannah's ambition acted like a current, pulling him in directions he wasn't strong enough to resist. Instead, The remainder beneficiary was my sister's orphaned daughter, Maisie. She is 9 years old, a sweet girl living with a foster family, and she has no connection to Savannah's circle of influence. Mr. Baird added 2 more layers, like locks on a vault. First, a spendthrift clause, which meant that even if Maisie, as an adult, fell into debt, no creditor could ever seize the house. Second, a no contest clause, a simple, brutal piece of legal engineering if any person, including Adam, challenged the validity of the trust in court. They would be immediately and completely disinherited from any claim, real or imagined. David, however, was a belt and suspenders man. He wanted a backup to the backup. While the trust was being finalized, he quietly executed a transfer on death deed. It was a simple document, filed and notarized at the Williamson County Courthouse, stating that upon his death, his share of the house transferred directly to me. It bypassed probate. It bypassed Adam. And, crucially, it was filed 2 months before Adam and Savannah even announced their engagement. We kept it quiet. Adam didn't need to know the details of our estate planning. The only soul I told was my neighbor, Hector Vale. Hector worked in the county records office for 40 years before retiring. He understood the language of deeds and trusts better than most lawyers. When I showed him the filed trust document, he tapped the county stamp. "That's iron, Eleanor," he'd said, his voice a low rumble. "You hold the originals. Paper beats talk every time." Then came the wedding and the post-nuptial agreement. Adam was mortified when we brought it up. "Mum, this is insulting to Savannah. It's not about Savannah." I had insisted, gently but firmly. "It's about this house. This is separate property. It was my family's before I met your father, and it's mine now. It will not become a community asset." Savannah, surprisingly, had laughed and signed, calling it a charmingly old-fashioned formality. Adam signed too. The postnup was clear. Adam Whitford's spouse had no claim, now or ever, on the property or assets of Eleanor Whitford. The original, signed by both of them and filed with the court, was in this red folder. My hand tightened on the file. The memories of the last few months, which I had dismissed as annoyances, now looked like a coordinated campaign. Savannah's constant offers of help. "Eleanor, you're paying way too much for insurance. Let me bundle your homeowner's policy with ours. It will save you hundreds. I just need a copy of your old policy and your driver's license to get the quote." I had politely declined. "We should really consolidate the property taxes. It's so inefficient to have 2 households paying separately. Why don't you let me handle the paperwork? I just need your authorization." I had declined that, too. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I had walked out to my mailbox. The metal door was slightly ajar. Inside, a letter from my bank, a routine statement, had been torn open. The contents hastily shoved back inside. I knew, instinctively, it was Savannah. She had a key for emergencies. Just in case. She must have seen the bank alert about the property tax payment. I'd installed a locking mailbox the next day, but the breach had happened. She had seen my account numbers. I looked up from the folder. Savannah was in the foyer, directing one of the movers. "The large sofa goes first. We're reupholstering it, so don't worry about scratching the old fabric." She had used my politeness as a cover. She had mistaken my grief for senility. She had my signature, copied from some document she'd helped me with, and she had found a fraudulent lawyer and a fake notary to build a house of cards. But I wasn't holding cards. I was holding stone. That red folder wasn't just my past. It was my present. And the reason I knew what Savannah was doing before she even knocked on my door was because of a single piece of mail and a phone call I made in the dead of night. It had started about a week ago, not with the tampered mail that was earlier, but with a crisp, official-looking envelope from the Williamson County Appraisal District. It wasn't my tax bill. That was months away. It was a notice of change to correspondent. I slit it open and read that all future tax correspondence, including duplicate bills, would be directed to a new email address S. Pierce, realtyaigmail.com, Savannah's email. I held the paper, my hand shaking just slightly. This was different from her casual snooping. This was an official, recorded action. My first call wasn't to a lawyer. It was to Tara Quinlan. We'd been friends since high school, and she was now the senior records administrator at the county clerk's office. I called her personal cell, even though it was almost 9 o'clock at night. "Tara, it's Eleanor," I said, my voice low. "I'm sorry to call so late, but I think someone is trying to mess with my property records." Tara, ever the professional, just said, "Give me your parcel ID. I'm still at the office finishing a reconciliation. I'll call you back in 10. She called back in 5. Her voice was no longer friendly. It was arctic. "Eleanor," she said, "you need to get over here. Tomorrow morning, first thing, and you need to be prepared to hire an attorney." I was there at 8 a.m., before the doors even opened to the public. Tara led me into a back office, a scanner humming in the corner. She pulled up an image on her monitor. "This was filed 3 days ago," she said, pointing. "A quitclaim deed, signing your interest in the house over to Adam and Savannah Pierce as joint tenants." There, in the signature box, was my name. Eleanor Whitford. It was a good forgery. The loop of the E was a little too high, the F a bit too sharp, but to an untrained eye, it was mine. "I didn't sign this," I whispered, feeling the blood drain from my face. "I know," Tara said, her eyes grim. She zoomed in on the date. "This was notarized on May 4th. Where were you on May 4th? I had to think for a second. I was at the Juniper Vale Spring Market, all day, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I was running the main booth. There were, 200 people who saw me there." "Exactly," Tara said. She clicked another link, and a new image popped up. "This is the notary. N. Ray. The seal is clear. The signature is confident. The problem is, I recognized the name." She typed into another search box. A state database page loaded. N. Ray. She read. Had their notary commission permanently revoked last year. For, wait for it, moral turpitude and fraudulent acts. So, it's a fake. It's worse than a fake. L. The stamp is real. It's a stolen or illegally held stamp. The date is fresh. This is professional-grade fraud. She wasn't done. And they filed this as an attachment. She pulled up a third document. A limited power of attorney, purportedly from you, giving Adam full authority over your real estate assets. Also notarized by our friend N. Ray, also dated May 4th. I sank into the hard plastic visitor's chair. Notary fraud? The words sounded foreign and terrifying. And they paid the filing fee with a runner, Tara whispered, leaning in. A runner is a service that files documents for title companies and lawyers. This one is used almost exclusively by the Pierce Realty Group. I left Tara's office numb. The tax notice, the fake deed, the fraudulent notary, Savannah's family business. It was a net, and they had been weaving it for months. My next call was to Hector Vale. I caught him just as he was heading out for his morning walk. I explained what Tara had found. He was silent for a long moment. "The runner," he finally said, his voice gravelly. "That's how they do it. They bury a fraudulent deed in a stack of legitimate filings. The clerk's office is overworked. They check for signatures and a notary stamp. They collect the fee, and they file. They don't have time to cross-reference every notary's license on every document. Savannah's family knows this. They've been flipping properties in this county for decades." He was right. They were professionals. But so was I. I went home. I made a cup of tea, and with a perfectly steady hand, I picked up the phone. I dialed the main number for the Pierce Realty Group. "Pierce Realty? How can I help you?" A bright, young voice answered. "Yes," I said, pitching my voice just a little higher, adding a touch of a West Texas drawl I hadn't used in years. "I'm looking to buy an investment property in the Georgetown area. My name is Nora Lyons. I was told Savannah Pierce is the best, an absolute shark at closing deals. I was wondering if I could schedule a consultation." The Pierce Realty office was all glass, brushed steel, and uncomfortable white leather. It smelled faintly of aggressive air freshener and espresso. As I walked in, I could hear Savannah's voice echoing from a conference room. I was not Eleanor Whitford. Today, I was Nora Lyons, a recent divorcee from Midland with oil money to park. I wore a wide-brimmed hat I'd bought for a garden party years ago and sunglasses. A receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "I have a 10:30 appointment with Savannah Pierce," I said, using my Nora Lyons voice. "Oh, she's just finishing up a live stream. You can go on in." I pushed open the heavy glass door. Savannah was standing in front of a ring light, her phone propped up on a tripod. She was mid-sentence, radiating professional competence. "And the key for first-time buyers," she was saying to her phone, "is to be aggressive. Find an asset that isn't performing and maximize its potential. Don't let sentimentality get in the way of a good deal." She saw me and flashed her bright, empty smile, wrapping up the video. "That's all for today. Click the link in my bio for my top 5 foreclosure picks. Ciao." She ended the recording and turned to me, her persona shifting instantly. "Nora Lyons. So glad you could make it. Savannah Pierce?" We shook hands. Her grip was firm, her nails immaculate. "Oh my goodness," I gushed. "I've heard so much. A friend of mine in Austin said you have the sharpest closing skills in Central Texas. She said you can get any deal done." Savannah preened. "We do our best. Now, you said you were looking for investments, something to move on quickly." "Exactly," I said, taking the seat she offered. "I'm not interested in fixer-uppers. I'm looking for properties with, let's say, motivated sellers, properties that are ready to transfer, clean and fast. I move with cash, and I move quickly." A predatory light sparked in her eyes. This was the language she understood. "You've come to the right place," she said, leaning forward. "Most of my inventory is standard, but I do have one situation that's just about to close. It's a prime homestead property right here in Georgetown. And the price," she lowered her voice, is rock bottom. The current owner is, shall we say, ready to transition, and she's willing to transfer it for pennies on the dollar to keep it in the family. Oh, I leaned in, feigning intimacy. Family transfers can be so messy. Is the title clear? As of this week, it is perfectly clear, Savannah said with a definitive nod. She tapped on her computer. The quitclaim deed was just filed. It's an absolute gem, locked in and ready to be leveraged. That sounds exactly like my kind of deal, I said, impressed. You see, I have a wire transfer set to go. My bank, however, is a real stickler. They insist on seeing a complete document set before they'll release a 7-figure sum. They're such a pain. Would it be possible to see a copy of the filing set you used for that deal, just so I can show my people what a clean Texas transfer looks like? It would really speed things up for us. She hesitated. This was the tricky part. I can't show you the specifics. Of course, client confidentiality, she said. Oh, no. Heavens, no. I laughed. I don't need to see the names, just the, what do you call them, the forms? The filing codes, just to show my bank this is how pros like you get it done. She thought for a second, then smiled. She saw a large commission in her future. I suppose I can show you the document checklist. Hold on. She pulled a file from her desk, not a red one, but a standard manila folder. She opened it and turned it toward me, covering the names with her hand. See, everything is here. Quitclaim, supporting affidavits, tax clearance. The pages were blurry, clearly copies of copies, but I didn't need to read them. My phone was in my hand on my lap. I angled it slightly. Click. I said. That is thorough. I leaned in, pretending to study a line item. Click. I got a clear shot of the filing numbers in the corner and, more importantly, a header on a piece of correspondence. It was an email. Click. The email address, printed at the bottom of a supposed legal opinion, was Attorney Lockin Paralegal, com. Lockin. A clever, cheap misspelling of my real law firm, Baird and Locklin. A paralegal address. A fake. Just then, a young man, an assistant, stuck his head into the conference room. Hey, Sav, do you have the final numbers for the remodel on the Gables house? The crew wants to start on Monday. Savannah's eyes turned to ice. The assistant, seeing me, blanched. Oh, sorry. I'll be out in a minute. Chad. Savannah snapped. Chad, however, was flustered. I just wanted to confirm. Your mother-in-law definitely signed off on the demolition permits. Right. The silence was a vacuum. I looked at Savannah with wide, innocent eyes. Savannah gave him a look so cold it could have frozen coffee. We're in a meeting. Chad. Get out. He vanished. She turned back to me, her professional smile plastered on, but her eyes were furious. Staff, she said, with a wave of her hand. So hard to find good help. Oh, I understand completely, I said, gathering my purse. I stood up. This has been more helpful than you can imagine. Savannah, you've given me a lot to think about. So, you'll be in touch? She asked, walking me to the door, eager to get me out. Absolutely. I'll have my people review these standards, and I'll be in touch. Very soon. I didn't walk to my car. I walked 2 blocks to a coffee shop, sat in a booth, and pulled out my phone. The photos were clear, the filing numbers, the fake email address, I didn't call Baird and Lachlan. They were good men, but they were estate planners. They were gardeners. I needed a butcher. I Googled best civil fraud litigators in Austin and made a call. An hour later, I was in a video conference with a woman named Marla Duval. She had sharp eyes, silver hair pulled into a severe bun, and a voice like gravel. I forwarded her the photos while I explained the situation. She was silent, just looking, clicking, reading. "Well, Mrs. Whitford," she said, after 5 minutes that felt like 5 hours. "She's sloppy. That lock-in paralegal email is a gift. The notary, N. Ray, is already on the state's fraud list. We can get a temporary restraining order filed within the hour. It'll stop the movers, stop the demolition permit Chad was babbling about, and freeze any attempt to sell or get a loan against the property." "Good," I said, relieved. "But," she continued, "a TRO is a bandage. It's not a cure. They'll just say it was a clerical error, that you're a confused old woman. To win, to put them down for good, we need a knockout blow. We need something that proves their case is not just wrong, but impossible." I looked down at the crimson-red folder I had brought with me, sitting in my lap. I allowed myself a small, tight smile. "Ms. Duval," I said, "I have an irrevocable homestead trust, signed 2 years ago and filed with the county, and I have a few other things. I think I have exactly what you need." Marla Duval's voice over the phone was the sound of a steel file sharpening a blade. I had emailed her scans of every page in the crimson folder. "Mrs. Whitford, you didn't just build a fortress," she said, her voice crackling with a litigator's enthusiasm. "You built a nuclear bunker, this irrevocable homestead trust. This is a masterpiece." She proceeded to break it down for me, not as a lawyer, but as a strategist. "Here's the simple version, Eleanor. Once you put your house into that trust, you no longer owned it, in the way Savannah thinks. The trust owns it. You are simply the lifetime trustee and resident." I nodded, listening on speakerphone. "So, the quitclaim is toilet paper," Marla said bluntly. "It's a fraudulent document attempting to give away something you don't have the power to give away. Not without the consent of the trust. And who is the trustee? You. And who is the backup co-trustee?" "My neighbor, Hector," I said. "Exactly. Unless you and Hector both signed this mythical quitclaim deed, which you didn't. It has no more legal standing than a grocery list. She can't take what wasn't yours to give." She kept going. "On top of that, you have the Texas homestead protections. This is your primary residence. In this state, your home is sacred. You could owe $1 million to a credit card company, and they couldn't touch it. A daughter-in-law with a fake piece of paper, she doesn't stand a chance in hell. And the post-nuptial agreement?" "She probably hid her copy," I said. "Or destroyed it." "I don't care if she papered her bathroom with it." Marla shot back. "You have the original signed and stamped filed by the county clerk. It's a court document. It proves Adam entered the marriage agreeing, on paper, that your property is a fortress he can't invite his wife into." She took a breath. "The trust makes her civil case void. The postnup makes her claim to any family asset void. But the notary, N. Ray, that's the criminal part. That's the mens rea, the intent. That's the part that sends people to jail." There was a pause. "And that's what we need to prove," Marla said, her voice suddenly serious. "We have the what. We know how they did it. We need the why. We need to prove Savannah knew she was committing fraud. An email, a text, a recording of her planning this, of her pressuring Adam. My mind flashed, not to a text, but to a chime. My doorbell camera. It had been last week, Tuesday. I was at my monthly meeting for the Conservancy Board. I remembered because my phone had buzzed with a motion alert, and I'd silenced it, annoyed. "Marla," I said, my heart starting to pound. "I have to call you back." I hung up and went to my computer, pulling up the security app for my front door. I scrolled back. Tuesday, 10:14 a.m. The timeline lit up. Motion detected. I clicked the video. The audio was crystal clear. There was Savannah, standing on my porch, holding a thin stack of papers. Adam was with her, shifting his weight, his keys in his hand. He looked like a child about to be scolded. "Adam, it's simple," Savannah's voice said, sharp and impatient. "I've already got the notary. We just file it. It's just a formality to get the new insurance bundle." "A power of attorney." Adam's voice was thin, miserable. "And this other thing, a quitclaim, Savannah. This feels wrong. This is Mom's house. I don't want to do this." "It's our house, baby," she said, her voice instantly shifting, becoming syrupy and sweet. "It's our future. Your mom is getting older. She doesn't need the stress of managing a big property. We're helping her. This just puts the asset in the family's name. It's smart. But to sign her name." "I'm not asking you to sign her name," she hissed, the sweetness gone. "My lawyer drew up the power of attorney. You sign that as her son. And you sign the quitclaim. If she won't agree, if she's going to be difficult, then we just file this quitclaim. My lawyer can handle it. He said it's a grey area, and he'll push it through." A long silence. Then, Adam's voice choked. "I don't want to." I could hear him crying, just a quiet, wretched sniffle. "Oh, for God's sake. Adam, don't be weak." Savannah snapped. "Do you want to be renting an apartment for the rest of your life? Do you want our kids to have nothing, or do you want to take what's ours, sign the papers?" I watched, sickened, as my son took the pen. He signed the power of attorney form, right there on my porch, with a blue pen from his own pocket. The quitclaim, I noted, was already signed with a different, heavier, black ink. He had signed it earlier. This was just the POA. He was signing it, without me. His mother, even being in the same zip code. I saved the file. I downloaded the audio. I stared at the screen for a full minute. The image of my weeping son and his predatory wife burned into my mind. The grief was a physical weight, heavier than the anger. But the anger was there. It was cold, and it was clear. I picked up the phone and called Marla Duval. "I have it," I said. "Audio, video. I have her admitting to the quitclaim. I have her coercing Adam. I have everything." Marla was silent. I could almost hear her smiling. "Good. We file the TRO immediately. We'll have her served at her office." "No," I said. "No, Eleanor. That's the procedure." "No," I said again, my voice hardening. "This didn't start in a courtroom. It's not going to end there. This started in my home. I want her back in my home. I am going to get Savannah and Adam in my living room, in front of witnesses, and I am going to show them, and you, what the real papers look like." The trap was set for Sunday. I called Adam, my voice warm and slightly wistful. Adam, honey, why don't you and Savannah come over for dinner on Sunday, a potluck, before, well, before you start all your big renovations? It would be nice to have one last proper meal, just family. He'd agreed, sounding relieved, as if a potluck was the key to smoothing everything over. And I'm inviting Hector and Tara, I added, and Pastor Dave, just to, you know, share a few memories of your father. It feels right. Savannah wouldn't be able to object to that. Refusing to let a widow share memories with old friends would be a bad look, even for her. Sunday afternoon arrived, bright and hot. Hector came first, carrying a pecan pie and a heavy, official-looking briefcase, just in case. Tara followed with a casserole, her eyes sharp and supportive. Pastor Dave, a kind man who had known my husband for 20 years, arrived with a simple green salad, his presence lending an air of solemn, unimpeachable community standing. This was the visible layer of the trap. The invisible layer was already in place. Marla, true to her word, had a court clerk on call, sitting in a car 2 blocks away with a fully drafted temporary restraining order, signed by a judge on an emergency basis. All it needed was Marla's text message to activate, confirming the imminent threat to the property. Inside my house, I had made my own preparations. The small, discreet security cameras I'd installed after David's stroke were all active, their tiny green lights glowing. In the living room, a high-fidelity microphone was set on the bookshelf, legally justified by the small, new, and very clear plastic sign I'd placed on the entryway table. This property is under 24-hour audio and video surveillance. Savannah and Adam would walk right past it. And on the coffee table, gleaming under the afternoon sun, sat the crimson-red accordion file. It was closed, but it was not locked. Inside, I had placed the essentials in order: the original, notarized irrevocable trust agreement, the filed transfer on death deed, the affidavit of heirship, and, tucked right at the back, Adam's court-filed post-nuptial agreement. We made small talk for an hour. Savannah was restless, clearly annoyed by the presence of my old friends and their gentle reminiscing about David. Adam looked green, picking at the label on his beer bottle. Finally, as I was about to suggest we set out the food, Savannah clapped her hands together, a sharp, managerial sound. "This has all been so lovely," she said, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. "But Adam and I have some exciting news. I didn't want to bother you with the details earlier. Eleanor. But the contractors are all set. The demolition crew is scheduled to arrive at 8 a.m. on Monday. They'll be starting with the kitchen." The room went quiet. Hector set his iced tea down, Tara's gaze locked on Savannah. "Monday," I said, allowing a tremor of confusion into my voice. "Oh, that's so soon." "No time like the present." Savannah beamed. "We're on a tight schedule. We need to have the demo done, the new support beams in, and the walls down before the end of the month." I pressed a hand to my temple, feigning a flutter of old-age forgetfulness. "Oh, dear. My memory. It's all moving so fast. Savannah, darling, you must remind me." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial, slightly panicked whisper. "I'm so terrible with paperwork. When exactly did we sign all of this? I can't for the life of me picture it." This was the bait. Savannah's smile became condescending. She glanced at Adam, then at my guests, as if to say, "See what I have to manage." "Oh, Eleanor," she said, her voice patronizing. "You don't need to worry your pretty head about it. It was all handled." "But I do worry," I insisted. "I must have been having a bad day. Was it at the bank? I can't find the meeting in my calendar. And the notary. Did he come here?" Savannah took the hook, the line, and the sinker. She launched into her narrative, eager to establish her authority in front of my friends. "It was simple," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "We didn't need a big meeting. You signed the limited power of attorney. Remember, that gave Adam the ability to handle the transfer. And then we just filed the quitclaim." Tara, from her chair, interjected softly. "A quitclaim with a notary, I assume." "Of course," Savannah said, annoyed by the interruption. "Our attorney has a notary he works with. N. Ray. He's very efficient. He handled everything." "So, N. Ray met with my mother-in-law to witness her signature?" Tara asked, her voice still polite, but with a steel edge. Savannah was caught. She couldn't say I was there, because I wasn't. She had to rely on the fake power of attorney. "No," Savannah said, getting visibly irritated. "He didn't need to. As I just said, we had the power of attorney. Adam signed the transfer documents. The notary just finalized the deed. He processed it for us. It's all perfectly standard for a fast-track family transfer." She had done it. In a room with 3 witnesses, on audio and video, she had just described, in detail, a textbook case of notary fraud. She admitted to using a POA to bypass the homeowner and to using a notary who had processed a deed without ever seeing the supposed signatory. I kept my face a mask of mild confusion. "So, I didn't sign the deed." "No, Eleanor," Savannah said, her patience clearly gone. "Adam signed. It's done. This house is ours now." I let the silence hang for 3 full seconds. Then, I reached forward, my hand steady, and placed it on the crimson-red folder. "That," I said, my voice suddenly clear and cold as ice, "is where you are very, very wrong." I unclasped the crimson folder. The click of the metal latch was abnormally loud in the quiet room. "The problem, Savannah," I said, my voice cutting through the smug atmosphere she had created, "is that you just described a transaction that is legally impossible." I slid the first document from the folder and placed it squarely in the center of the coffee table. The embossed cover page, thick and heavy, read, "The Whitford Irrevocable Homestead Trust." Savannah stared at it. What? What is that?" "Some old will." Hector leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. He pulled a folded paper from his own briefcase. "That," he said, his voice booming with the authority of his 40 years at the clerk's office, "is the controlling document for this property. I'm holding a certified copy. It was filed with Williamson County, instrument number 2023, White 1144, book 305, page 212. 2 years ago. It precedes any quit claim you think you have." Savannah's face paled. That's not. A trust can be changed. Not an irrevocable one," Tara said, her voice sharp. She placed her own papers on the table, fanning them out like a poker hand. "And certainly not with a fraudulent deed. You mentioned a notary. N. Ray." Tara slid a printout from the Texas Secretary of State's office across the table. Ray's driver's license photo was next to a large, red, all caps, word, revoked. His commission was permanently revoked last year. Savannah. Tara said. I have a list of his known seal violations. The one on your fake deed is a known forgery. That's a state jail felony. My lawyer, he handled all of that. Savannah stammered, her eyes darting between the papers. Adam, tell them it was for the insurance. Was it, Adam? I asked, my voice soft. I picked up my phone from the table. Was it just for insurance, or was it to take what's ours? I tapped the screen. The room filled with the sound of my own front porch. First, Savannah's voice, sharp and clear from the phone's speaker. Adam, it's simple. I've already got the notary. We just file it. Then Adam's, thin and miserable, a power of attorney. And this other thing. A quitclaim, Savannah. This feels wrong. Then Savannah's, cold and hard. If she's going to be difficult, then we just file this quitclaim. My lawyer can handle it. He said it's a grey area, and he'll push it through. And finally, the most damning line. Oh, for God's sake. Adam, don't be weak. Do you want to take what's ours? I stopped the recording. Adam made a sound, a raw, strangled gasp, and he folded in on himself. He slid from the arm of the sofa to his knees, his head in his hands. I thought it was just to combine the insurance policies. He sobbed into the carpet. She said it was just a backup. I didn't know. Oh God. Mum, I'm so sorry. Savannah was breathing heavily, her face a mask of furious, blotchy red. She stood up. This is ridiculous. A trust you can't just hide assets in a trust and ignore your family. A trust still has to respect the family's wishes. It respects the grantor's wishes, a new voice said from the entryway. We all turned. A woman in a sharp grey suit, her silver hair in a bun, stood in the open doorway. Marla Duval. My name is Marla Duval, she said, stepping into the room. I'm Mrs. Whitford's counsel. She walked past Savannah and placed a new document on the table. This, she said, is a temporary restraining order, signed by Judge Prentice 1 hour ago. It is in immediate effect. She turned to Savannah. It freezes all assets related to this case. It bars you, your husband, and any of your agents, including your demolition crew, from transferring, altering, mortgaging, or stepping foot on this property. If that truck at the curb moves onto this driveway, you will be in contempt of court. Savannah just stared at her, speechless. I stood up. I walked past the table, past my weeping son. I picked up the last document from the crimson folder. It was thin, just a few pages, stapled at the corner, with the clerk's file stamp clearly visible. I didn't give it to Savannah. I held it out to Adam. He looked up, his face slick with tears and shame. Adam, I said, my voice devoid of all anger, leaving only a cold finality. This is the post-nuptial agreement you signed before your wedding, the one that states, in no uncertain terms, that Savannah Pierce has zero financial interest in any of my separate property, including this house. You might want to read it again, carefully, before you decide what to do next. He took the papers. There was no shouting. There was no screaming. There was just the sound of my son's broken sobs, the rustle of real papers, and the heavy, crushing, absolute silence of a courtroom. Just as the full weight of the TRO settled into the room, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a friendly chime. It was a hard, insistent press. We all froze. Adam was still on his knees, and Savannah was standing rigid, her face white with rage. I went to the door. Through the peephole, I saw a uniform. I opened it. A young, impassive Williamson County deputy constable stood on my porch. He was holding a clipboard and a bright orange notice. Mrs. Eleanor Whitford. Yes, I am, I said. I'm here to serve this notice pursuant to a temporary restraining order, case number 45C-2024. He said in a monotone, and to post this legal notice of work stoppage on the premises. He held out the papers. Are the other parties, Savannah and Adam Pierce, present? Yes, officer. Marla's voice cut in from behind me. They are. We accept service. The deputy nodded, handed the papers to Marla, and then, with a small hammer and a single tack from his belt, he affixed the bright orange, waterproof notice of court order, work stopped, to my front door, right over the peephole. He tipped his hat and left. As the sound of his footsteps faded, a new sound entered the room. A phone, vibrating violently on the coffee table. Savannah's phone. She stared at it, then snatched it up. Her eyes scanned the screen. What is this? She whispered, her voice trembling for the first time. What did you do? Marla answered, her voice cool. That would be a copy of my email to the Texas Secretary of State's Notary Public Division, informing them of a good faith belief of felony fraud, forgery, and the use of a revoked notary's seal. It appears they've just opened a formal criminal investigation. They work fast. Ping. A different sound. Adam's phone, lying on the rug where he'd dropped it. He fumbled for it, his hands shaking. He read the email alert. The bank, he whispered, looking at me, his eyes wide with a new, dazed horror. They're rejecting the change of correspondent. They're restoring your email as the only contact. They've locked the property tax account. My team contacted their fraud department this morning, Marla said, as if discussing the weather. Banks also work fast when you show them a file-stamped TRO and evidence of a revoked notary. Marla turned back to the table and pulled another document from her own briefcase. But the trust, the TRO, and the criminal referral aren't even the whole story. Here's surprise number 1. She placed a single-page document on the table. This is an affidavit of gift, executed and filed by your late husband, Mrs. Whitford. It was recorded before Adam's wedding day. It gifts you, separate and apart from the trust, a full life estate in this property. Even if the trust didn't exist, this document alone makes any quitclaim deed null and void. It's a backup to the backup. She didn't wait for that to sink in. Surprise number 2. She held up a printout of an email. This is from your homeowner's insurance. Someone tried to change the emergency contact and add a new party to the policy. They did it online. We subpoenaed the IP address this morning. She looked directly at Savannah. It originates from the primary server at the Pierce Realty Group's main office. And finally, Marla said, surprise number 3. She tapped the photo I had taken of the fake lawyer's email. This attorney lock-in paralegal, com. We traced it. It's not a law firm. It's a shared cPanel email address, hosted on the exact same server as the Pierce Realty public website. There is no lawyer. You, Ms. Pierce, are the lawyer. Savannah finally broke. I was following advice. I had a consultation. Marla laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. She reached into her briefcase one last time and pulled out a thick, bound document. She didn't place it on the table. She dropped it. It landed with a heavy, final thud that vibrated the teacups. "This," Marla said, "is a draft of the civil complaint and criminal referral we are filing tomorrow. Attempted theft by deception, tampering with a government record, and felony notary fraud, which carries a 2-year mandatory minimum in this state." The room was utterly silent. Pastor Dave looked as if he were praying. Tara and Hector just looked grim. I was the only one who spoke. I looked at Savannah, and then at my son, who was still on the floor, the post-nup in his hands. "You have 2 options, Savannah," I said, my voice calm. "You can sign a full affidavit of disclaimer, admitting to the fraudulent filings and withdrawing all claims, and you will cooperate with the state's investigation into N. Ray. Or we can all wait for the truest copy of this to be served at your office tomorrow morning. The choice is yours." Adam didn't move from the floor for a long time. Savannah was a statue of white-hot rage, utterly silent, her mind visibly calculating and recalculating, finding only closed doors. "Mom," Adam finally whispered. The sound was ragged, torn from him. He pushed himself up, his face glistening, and collapsed onto the couch. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about the notary, the fake deed." "What did you think you were signing, Adam?" I asked, my voice quiet. She told me we were drowning." He choked. "She showed me. She opened credit cards. In my name. Without telling me. She said it was to leverage our assets for a down payment on a rental property." Savannah, hearing her words, finally spoke. "It's a valid strategy. You have to use debt to build wealth. It's a TikTok financial coach. Savannah." Adam screamed, his voice cracking. "They're kids in their parents' basements. They're not real advisors. I found a box of new cards under the sink. Mum. Maxed out. Thousands of dollars." He turned back to me, his eyes pleading. "She said this was the only way, that if we managed your asset, we could get a loan, clean up the mess. I thought it was just paperwork." I looked at my son, a man I suddenly didn't recognize, hollowed out by weakness and deceit. I went to him. I put my hand on his head, just as I had when he was a boy with a fever. He was trembling. I hugged him, once, pulling his head to my shoulder. He felt stiff, broken. Then I stepped back. "I love you, Adam. You will always be my son." His face started to fill with a desperate, childish hope. I had to kill it. "But the law is the law, and what you did is real. You need your own lawyer. Not Marla. Not Savannah's family. Your own." Pastor Dave, who had watched this all with a profound sadness, stood and put a hand on my arm. "Eleanor, this is a heavy burden." "It is," I agreed, turning to him. "Pastor, there is one thing. My niece, Maisie. She's safe with her foster mother, but this will get public. I want you to call them. I want you to reassure them, from a man of God, that her trust is secure, that she is safe, and that this is just me cleaning the house." He nodded, his face kind. "I will call them this very evening." Hector and Tara began packing up their own papers. "You're safe, Eleanor," Hector said, patting the red folder, which was back in my lap. "You have the life estate. They could have served you with 1,000 fake deeds, and they still couldn't have kicked you out." "I know," I said. But this was never about just not being kicked out. This was about the truth. Tara zipped her bag. My report on N. Ray and the filed documents is going straight to the district attorney's office tomorrow. This is far beyond a family dispute. Marla, having accepted service from the deputy, was already on her phone. And I'm filing a notice of lis pendens against this property tonight. It's a public record. It warns the entire world that the title is in dispute. It will effectively stop Savannah, or Pierce Realty, from trying to sell or get a loan against this house, even if they wanted to. My friends and my lawyer left. The house was thick with the residue of the confrontation. "Get your things," I said to Adam. He looked up, confused. "Mum, you can't stay here, not now." While he went upstairs, numbly, to pack a bag, I sat at my desk. I pulled up my email. I wrote a short, clear note to the neighborhood watch list. "Dear friends, it has come to my attention that individuals may be misrepresenting themselves regarding my property. Please be advised that I am not selling, renting, or planning any renovations. If you are approached by anyone claiming to have authority to do so, please call the Williamson County Sheriff's Office." I hit send. Adam came down with a small duffel bag. He looked lost. I'll go to Mark's apartment," he mumbled. I nodded. I pointed to a piece of paper on the entryway table, next to the small sign warning of surveillance. "I left you a list of names, debt counselors. They are very good and very discreet." He flinched, picked up the paper, and walked out the door without looking back. Savannah, who had been sitting on the porch in a daze, followed him. That night, the house was profoundly quiet. My phone buzzed around 10, a long string of texts from Savannah. "You don't understand the pressure. We can still fix this. For Adam, this is a family problem, not a legal one. Please don't let Marla ruin us. Think about your son." I took screenshots and emailed them to Marla, 5 minutes later. Savannah's phone buzzed. Marla, as promised, had replied on my behalf. "Ms. Pierce Mrs. Whitford forwards this attempt to bypass counsel. All communication will cease. Our next contact will be a formal request for all your electronic devices, email accounts, and access codes related to this fraud. Surrender them voluntarily, while you still can." I turned off my phone. I walked through the quiet living room. The photo of David, the one that had fallen from the mover's box that morning, was sitting on the table. The house of 7 gables. In my memory, the glass had been rattling all day. I picked it up. I ran my thumb over the frame. I set it down, adjusting it so it was perfectly straight. My hand was steady. The glass was still. The preliminary hearing was held in a sterile, grey mediation room at the county courthouse. It wasn't a trial, just a conference to review the restraining order. Savannah walked in, not in handcuffs, but in a sharp navy blue suit. She was flanked by a man who radiated expensive confidence, a senior civil attorney from the Pierce Realty Group. She looked rested. She looked ready for a fight. Then she saw me, sitting calmly next to Marla, and she saw the crimson-red accordion file on the table between us. Her composure didn't break, but I saw her smile tighten by a millimeter. The retired judge, acting as mediator, looked over his glasses. "Ms. Duval, you're alleging severe fraud here. I hope you brought more than a," he said. She said. "We did, Your Honor," Marla said. She stood, not with aggression, but with the quiet boredom of someone stating the obvious. She opened the red file. "First," she said, placing the heavy, embossed original of the Irrevocable Homestead Trust on the table. The raised notary seal was clearly visible. "The controlling document for the property, instrument number 2023-08-1154, filed and recorded 2 years ago, establishing a life estate for my client." Clack. She laid down the next document. "Second, the transfer on death deed, signed by the late Mr. Whitford. It grants his full interest to Mrs. Whitford. Crucially, it was recorded 3 months before Adam Whitford's wedding day." Clack. "Third, the court-filed post-nuptial agreement, signed by both Adam Whitford and Savannah Pierce, explicitly excluding this property from any community claim." Savannah's lawyer spoke up. "Your Honour, these documents may be—" Marla held up a hand. "I'm not finished. Fourth." Clack. "A certified copy of the revocation of commission for Notary N. Ray, and a sworn affidavit from a forensics expert identifying the seal on Ms. Pierce's quitclaim as a known forgery." Clack. "Fifth, a USB drive containing the time-stamped security camera audio with metadata verified, capturing Ms. Pierce admitting to the fraudulent deed and coercing her husband to sign a power of attorney under false pretenses." Clack. Marla placed the last sheet of paper down. "And sixth, the server IP trace for the attorney lock-in paralegal com email. It resolves to the shared hosting account for the Pierce Realty Group website. There is no lawyer. There never was." The room was absolutely silent. The mediator put down his pen. He slowly took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked at Savannah. "Ms. Pierce," he said, his voice quiet but carrying across the room. "Do you understand that these documents, all of which are filed public record, render your entire claim, your quitclaim deed, and your power of attorney completely and utterly void?" I watched her. This was the moment. The woman who had bulldozed her way into my home, who had smiled while changing my locks. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She put a hand on the table to steady herself. Her knees, I noted, were visibly shaking. She sank into her chair, her hand gripping the armrest, her knuckles white. Her lawyer, seeing his client and his firm's reputation about to be vaporized, immediately capitulated. "Your Honour, my client was clearly misinformed by third-party counsel. We are prepared to sign an affidavit of disclaimer. Immediately." "That's a start," Marla said. The agreement was swift and brutal. Savannah had to sign the affidavit, publicly disavowing her own fraudulent filing. She had to agree to cooperate fully with the district attorney's ongoing criminal investigation into the notary fraud. She had to pay every cent of my legal fees, and Marla informed them that a full copy of this file was being delivered to the Texas Real Estate Commission, recommending a full review of Pierce Realty's license. Adam, present with his own counsel, signed a commitment to attend mandatory debt counseling and a financial education course. I had Marla add one more clause, a binding condition on the trust Adam could not, under any circumstances, access or leverage any property asset without the unanimous written approval of the full board of trustees. He was my son, but he was no longer my risk. Then, Marla filed one last document. "Your Honour," she said, "to prevent any future confusion about the disposition of this estate, Mrs. Whitford has filed a final amendment to the trust." Savannah looked up, her eyes dead. Upon my client's passing, Marla announced to the room, "This house, the asset, Ms. Pierce was so eager to consolidate, will not be inherited by any single individual. The property is to be sold, with the entire proceeds used to establish the Whitford Scholarship Fund, providing educational grants for local children in Georgetown, including, of course, her niece, Maisie. There would be no fast inheritance, no quick flip, no reward for waiting, just long-term value for the community." The judge banged his gavel. "Stipulation entered. The matter is resolved. This TRO is dissolved." The demolition crew received its cancellation notice. The orange violation sticker was scraped off my door. I stood up. I slowly collected my papers, one by one. The trust, the deed, the postnup, the evidence. I slid them back into the crimson-red folder. I snapped the latch shut. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright, unforgiving Texas sun. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out and smiled. It was a text from Hector. I texted him back, "Iced tea at my place?" A moment later, his reply came, "Bringing peach cobbler." The papers in my bag hadn't just saved a house. They had taught my son, and my neighborhood, that you can't wrap fraud in the flag of family and expect to get away with it. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you are listening from, so please leave a comment down below to say hello and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, give this video a like, and show your support by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.